extraordinary thing. It's actually got propolis and honey in it. And this cake's here because it's the anniversary of when we launched Flow Hives. So it's pretty exciting to think back about that time. And we're going to also have questions related to that time coming in. So if you've got questions, perhaps you were there when we were originally doing the crowdfunding launch. It was a pretty amazing moment.
That does look so lush.
And we're here
Happy birthday, Flow Hive!
We're here with my sister Mira. We've got Rose, Danica, and Frey. And you might have spoken to some of them on customer support. You might have seen Mira's amazing footage. This is a dark one, right? This is
got to have two. It's a bit rainy here at the office today, so we haven't been able to harvest fresh to the cake, which we usually do. But we're making up for it with drizzling multicoloured honeys.
Yeah, we just had an amazing storm roll through. It's quietening down now. Oh, we could almost dash out there and harvest, but hey, we've already got honey on the cake, so let's just roll with that. Now it's almost a shame to cut this. Like I don't know if I can cut this beautiful cake.
Well, we're not going to eat and talk at the same time, though. I mean, you're not going to make us do that. Eating on live.
No, that's poor form. That's poor form.
You get to make Flo's wish.
Here we go.
Maybe we can just see inside what it looks like inside, because it
That's
sounds like
true.
there's so much lush ingredients.
Okay. Wow.
I'm going to cut a piece and just...
A cake like this, I better get right to the centre then.
Yeah. Let's see what it looks
I don't know
like.
if I can't cut through the middle of the flowers. It's going to be a big piece.
Oh, wow.
That's all right. Where's Charlie? He need it.
That's right. My son was born in the middle of the crowdfunding campaign. If you remember, it was a pretty interesting time to have a crazy invention story.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Gosh.
I don't know
And
if I'm going to be able to resist eating that. It's just like, nibble.
Apparently it's all flowers that bees love. It's got propolis and raw grain-free, gluten-free spun.
Amazing. So I can eat it. Yay!
amazing.
Yeah, these are asters and calendula. I'm not sure. I think these are a type of aster actually. These little ones. But yeah, they're all edible flowers that bees definitely love. Goodness. Yum.
So for those that are just tuning in, thank you so much for joining us today. We're celebrating the 7th anniversary. Amazing, it's been 7 years, unbelievable. Don't know how that time has flown by, but here we are, and we're celebrating today because 7 years.
So you might have to reinstate that last line.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry, we've got a few internet connection issues. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you do have questions, put them in the comments below. And especially if you were here in the beginning when we kicked off in 2015 on this day, then let us know where you are in the world. If you want to ask questions about that time, then that's great. Otherwise, general beekeeping questions as well.
I've got a question, Cedar.
Yeah?
So I want to know, apparently Lorenzo Langstroth, when he invented Langstroth, it came to him in a dream, the design. And I was just wondering like how Flow actually was born, like how you conceived of the design.
Okay, I guess there's a few key moments. The original one was born out of going through the conventional pathway of harvesting honey. I was selling buckets of honey at a local shop. I had 40 hives at home, and I just found it was a real long, labour-intensive process. The bees weren't happy about it. It was very messy. I was terrible at cleaning up. The shed was a mess, and I thought, there has to be a better way. Can't we just drain the honey straight out of the hive? So that was the initial idea.
Cue the black and white infomercial.
Yeah. But so for a while I tried, like some other people in the world I've found out since had tried, by sucking honey out of honeycomb cells. It's a challenge to get honey with its viscosity to come out of a hexagon matrix. And I guess I just thought of that because he said Langstroth, it came to him in a dream. For me, it was just that moment when I woke up and I was thinking about it. And I thought, hey, it doesn't have to be hexagon cells all the time. Perhaps it could be hexagon cells when the bees are filling it and then change into something else when it's time to drain the honey out. And that was the start of a whole, I guess, exploration into trying to create geometry that could do that. So I threw out all of the designs that were trying to suck honey out, and then moved to these intricate kind of designs that pulled together this way, basically in a sideways fashion. And then there was another key moment. My father actually, after a couple of strong coffees one morning, went, hang on, how about instead of going this way, we go this way? And I was like, I dropped everything I was doing, rushed into the shed, started to create a new prototype. And that's closer to what we have here in the hive, which is each cell line moves in a vertical fashion, creating channels down through the comb for the honey to flow out and into your jar. So that's how it all began in terms of the inventing. It was a decade-long task. It was a lot of fun. I was working with my father, and a real challenge to get to the point where the bees were happy with what we were doing and it was actually something useful.
Cedar, we've got a question. For those of us who were there when the crowdfunding took off in 2015, it was really quite a thing. The anticipation was enormous. Can you describe what it was like for you?
It was, this day 7 years ago was quite an incredible thing. We were set up in Canberra. We thought we would have to go to a big city, you know, to get some media attention on our invention. So we went to my grandfather's, and I have fond memories of harvesting honey with my grandfather as a child. So we went to his place in Canberra. But his flow hive, because we had set him up prior with a flow hive, wasn't quite full enough to harvest yet. So what we did is we got a box off one of our hives, and we put it in a case, and we went to take it on the plane. When we got there, they said, no, that's too heavy to actually take on the plane. And we're like, what? Because honey can be so heavy when it's all full in a box, right? So we went, well, how about if we take the suitcase off it? So we took the suitcase off that was around this and stuck a whole super of honey. Probably had a few bees still. We've got like honey dripping onto the, what do you call it, the carousel. And we watched it go and went, oh my God, I hope this works. And sure enough, it turned up at the other end. just a naked box. And so that allowed us to put that onto my grandfather's hive. And then we had the ABC TV lined up, and they were filming us as we were harvesting honey live for the launch of the crowdfunding. But of course, what had happened before that is we had this video we launched that my sister and I spent probably 2 years making.
And I literally stayed up all weekend that weekend, madly editing the final edit, and like I hit upload, had a little nap, and then I was driving to work when it launched.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, that was an amazing thing, right? So that video, we had like a pre-launch video, and we actually didn't need to go to a big city to get media. It was off. We had 1 million views in the first day and 1,000 questions coming in on email every day. And
75,000 people on our mailing list.
it was like instant. Instant. So, but there we were. We had this whole thing lined up. So I was in Canberra with my dad at my grandfather's place doing the thing. And then at home was Kylie, my other half, who was just about to pop with a baby in her belly, you know, and a crew of friends actually doing the things online to make the Indiegogo page launch. And we swapped from Kickstarter to Indiegogo like the night before. It was like,
yeah, it was mad. It was all mad.
It was totally mad. But there was this kind of anticipation, just getting back to your question. It was like, I don't know, there's like a big footy game about to start. And you should have launched with us. Should
have answered their emails.
They should have answered their emails. You know, I was saying, come on, let's do this. Anyway, it was a pretty interesting, very exciting time. We hit our target in 7 minutes. I just walked out of the interview with the ABC and was like, whoa.
Walked into Stu. Stu was getting interviewed. It was his turn to speak, and Cedar walked into his interview saying,
Ah.
"We've hit the target." And
Yeah.
Stu was like, "What are you interviewing?" And I was like, "What? Oh, we've actually hit the target."
And then we just kept breaking records.
Yeah.
Fastest to $1 million, fastest to 2 million, and it just rolled from there. It was like a wave, and thanks to all of you out there that supported it. I don't know how that happened, but so thank you all who got excited about our invention, who got interested in keeping bees, or perhaps rekindled your interest, or perhaps you're already a beekeeper. But there was a lot of you out there from 130 different countries, and that was what came next was pretty interesting, and that was, okay, now we have to make these. We've got 25,000 to make before Christmas, go! Ah! So that was a very kind of abrupt start, a rocket ship start to, I guess, the world of business, the world of manufacturing, the world of looking after and customers, and I love it. We're still here every week answering questions and having all of you tune in, because it just like we started, we've got this direct connection with you, and that's, I think, something that's really amazing and unusual. So thank you all. Any more questions?
People saying happy birthday, congratulations to you and Stu and Flow HQ. And there's a question, I'm in Amsterdam, can I
them in the snow, you can keep them in the desert. It's an incredible thing to have a global community from the rainy north coast of New South Wales, Australia here, to the dry inland places. Bees are incredibly resourceful, and they've got this amazing ability to air condition their hive and make use of whether it's hot or cold, and they will collect water and evaporate that to cool it down, disconnect their wing muscles and vibrate to warm it up.
Heater bees.
Heater bees. You kept bees in Berlin, how was that?
Yeah, it was actually one of my favourite places to keep bees was in Berlin on my little balcony, because I could actually see the bees flying from my bed out my window. And they did really well. In fact, in kind of urban environments, the bees get a lot of different sources of forage and pollen to keep them very healthy, actually. I also got the chance to film a lot of bees and beekeeping with Flow Hives around Europe and America. Downtown LA, we had a rooftop beehive. In Washington DC, we climbed up through the manhole to a beehive on the roof once. One of our customers that we were lucky enough to go and shoot videos with. And yeah, I think it's such a lovely thing to do in the city. You know, I had a beehive and I created a whole little garden and a little ecosystem just on a balcony that was only about 1.5 meters wide and a metre or two long.
How many hives did you have going there?
The most I had 3. I regularly had 2, but then there was a little hive that wasn't doing well, so I brought it home from my I had a garden apiary as well, and I grew about 30 sunflowers in pots and a bunch of other flowers for the bees, and actually a lot of native bees came and were foraging on the balcony. I had bumblebees and little metallic bees and all sorts.
Plant the flowers and they shall come.
I honestly plant them and they shall come. Everywhere I go, I build a garden and I always end up with all these beautiful bees. So
yeah, the unsung heroes of our world, the little pollinators that do their job and make the world go round. It's incredible to plant flowers and watch that happen and really tune in, and a great thing to do with your family as well. So I guess that European honeybees are extraordinary for the incredible honey they make, but it's also really important to look after all of those native bees. There's a couple of about 20,000 in the world native bee species. A lot of them don't create big colonies, they're just nesting in little little hollows and in mud and things like that. So, so that's a great thing to do as well, and of course it looks beautiful. Any questions?
We have a question. What's the difference between the Flow Hive Classic and the Flow Hive 2 Plus, and which one should I get?
We do have a special on, but this is the Flow Hive 2 Plus. We don't have the Classic here. I guess I could talk a little bit about the process of how this came about. And it really came about from customers telling us in order to innovate and change the design from the original one. So the original one was similar, except it just had a flat bottom on here and a corflute slider, and it didn't have as many observation windows, and it didn't have the pest management tray down the bottom. So what we did is we took all of the information from our direct connection to all of you wonderful beekeepers out there, and we said, okay, how can we do better? How can we create a hive that will be easier to keep bees in all of these different places in the world? And one of the things was simply it's hard to get the hive level. When we found out that from people that they thought it was level, and then they'd harvest and it would actually be sloping the other way and honey would spill out of the hive everywhere, and we thought, oh, how about we just make it easy? We'll put levels in the hive. And so we've put levels there, and we've put levels in the back here to really help you in your setup. And then each leg you can just adjust just by spinning it like this, and that adjusts your hive to get the bubble in the middle there, and away you go. And then we thought, well, let's just take it a step up and give some pest management to the hive. And we were doing all of this meanwhile setting up our own production line. So our dream was, let's do solar panels that turn into laser beams and cut out the hives. And we've set up that. So we're pretty excited about that as well. Not a whole lot of solar today, but most days they'll be getting cut purely on solar power, because we've got more than excess of electricity to do the cutting. So we've got this pest management tray here, which really does help to catch those pesky little small hive beetles, and you can put some oil in there, and the bees will chase them down through the screen bottom board. If I just move this aside, you can see the screen here. So the bees will chase the beetles right down through there and into the tray. So that's a really handy thing to have that set up. And then there's some ventilation control here. Vents down, closes it off. Vents up, lets air flow up between here and the hive body up under the screen. Or you can take the tray out altogether for a lot of ventilation. So that's been a really nice feature of the Flow Hive 2. And then moving up, we did these shelf brackets, because all of these people around the world were harvesting honey with the jars stacked on top of bricks and look like the Leaning Tower as up here. And we thought, how can we do this? And I really love things that repurpose. So this door, which is your observation window for the back here, just turns into the shelf. So that's really neat to have that. And that was quite an elegant way to do it. And the shelf here can click on at all these different screw points. If you've got really big jars, you can click on down lower. And they're also a great frame rest to double it up. They go on the side, click onto these screws, and you can put your brood frames when you're doing your routine brood inspections on those brackets, which works really well. Moving up in the hive, we've got more windows, we've got roof locks to hold it down. We've got nice brass fixtures. We just improved it, I guess, to getting back to your question, from the Flow Hive Classic to the Flow Hive 2, and the Flow Hive 2 Plus came with these nice aluminium legs, because that was the bit that was closest to the ground, getting a lot of splashback off the mud and things, and we thought, let's just make it more solid. We increased the size of the bolt, and we put this ant guard on here to stop ants coming up and making nests in behind the door covers, which can get annoying at times. Any more questions?
Yep, we have, I hear all the time that the honey from a flow hive tastes better. Why do you think that is?
That was a surprise, and there's been so many surprises along the way. Not only the launch and all sorts of other things we didn't expect, but one of them was this kind of report that kept coming, which was, how come the honey tastes so good? How come it tastes different from my conventional? Is a couple of factors, and some universities have actually done studies around it as well. So one is you're harvesting single frames. So bees will typically start in the center of the hive and fill out towards the extremities. And when they do that, if the flowers will change as they go. Maybe the melaleuca runs out, and then the ironbark starts flowering, and then the Goya starts flowering, and you end up with these different colours and different flavours. I mean, look at the different colour here of this one compared to that one. You've got two, and you'll often see that out of a single box, which was so different to conventionally harvesting, where you would go through that process of pulling out the frames and taking them to the extracting room, and you decap them and you spin them in a centrifuge, and you're not only mixing all of those flavours up in one hive, but you're mixing a whole apiary of flavours up typically. So instead of being able to enjoy flavour by flavour, the frame by frame, you're then getting more of a mixed flavour, which is still good, but it's not as good as tasting the unique flavours that come in. So I think that's one of the reasons. And the other one is the zero processing. The only thing that's made the honey come out of the hive is gravity. We've turned this, it's made some channels, flows down and out, and that's it. So that has an effect, I think. One is oxidization, where typically in a centrifuge you're spinning the honey out in these fine strands that then hit the walls and slowly go down, and the honey is getting exposed to quite a lot of oxygen. And we do know that oxygen does destroy the flavour a little bit, especially those fine floral essences of those really bright flavours that you'll get in honey. And another one is when honey comes into contact with things, honey's actually acidic, and if it gets in contact with things like metal, and typically there's a lot of metal things from the hot knife to the centrifuge, it actually imparts flavour on the honey. You'll notice that if you put a teaspoon covered in honey and leave it on the bench for even half an hour, you put that in your mouth, you can taste metal. And the same thing goes when you put honey in big metal drums. You'll get the flavour of the metal coming through. So that also affects it. So all of these things add up to people going, wow, this is an incredible flavour. John Gates was one of our early testers before the crowdfunding launch. He was in Canada, and he said, the honey tastes just like when you bite into fresh honeycomb. Away to anyone. And it was this moment where we really realised that there was an amazing thing here, and it's something we really didn't expect.
Yeah, and I interviewed someone in Texas, Jeff, who talked about the honey being like smelling it like a fine wine, and the single frames and he was a conventional beekeeper, so he'd done a lot of beekeeping the conventional way, and he just said the difference in flavour and the nuances were incredible. And so yeah, he'd harvested a few frames all into one, and now he was like, no, I always harvest single frames to single jars, so that you can tell that. And I've found even in my hives in Berlin, where we had a very monofloral nectar flow of the linden tree in the summer, even frame to frame, they looked the same colour, but they had a slight difference in flavour. One had, they might even look, very, very similar, but the bees were into a bit more of the citrus in the local, garden. So they might look like this, but one had a hint of citrus flavour and one had a hint of something else. And so it was really, it's like just, the bees really do get into those small nectar sources and add them to the bigger sources, and you do get, I would just never ever mix the frames anymore. I just always like to have that. And I kind of want to give people always several jars of honey, so they can, like, whenever I give people honey, I try so they can understand that honey isn't just this kind of golden thing that you get from the supermarket.
It's amazing, isn't it, the story that comes to the table when you're sharing the different flavours of honey. All of a sudden a whole world of discussion of bees pops up.
Where
and
does it come
you end up
from? And
talking a whole evening about honey and, and bees. It's a wonderful thing to be able to share your flavours of honey. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't realised already, it's the of our launch. So we're cutting a cake here. We're celebrating the Flow Hive team who's been just working away like busy little bees in a hive, and we're also celebrating all of you out there that have been a part of it, whether you were just tuned in and you shared the original video, or you were talking about it, or whether you got a Flow Hive and became a beekeeper. Today is a bit of a celebration to say what an amazing community that's sprung up around Flow Hive, and just how lucky we are that that's unfolded.
We have a great question from Jen. She says, my grandfather kept bees in Victoria. I can still remember the amazing smell of the honey shed, but I haven't kept bees before, and I'm sure there is a lot to learn. How do I start, and what do I need to know?
Okay, great question. Where do you start? So people start in all different ways. Like some people will like to read every book they can find, go and do a bee course, go and visit somebody with bees, and so on, before taking the plunge. And other people just like to jump in there, get their equipment and learn as they go. I'm the latter. I'm the learn as you go. I tend to bite off big pieces in life and just learn as I go, and that's a fun way for me to learn as well. So it doesn't matter which way you go, both are valid, but the important thing is that you do get education and you do learn. Now, we're lucky these days with such an amazing ability to share information around. I guess one thing we noticed when we all of a sudden, I think we're up to 100,000 hives now around the world, which is ridiculous, okay? But one thing we noticed was that about half the people were pretty new to beekeeping. So it was really clear to us that we needed to educate, and that's why we started doing the weekly live Q&A. That's why we started making content really early on to help educate. And almost 2 years ago now, we took a step up and we decided to create a really comprehensive online beekeeping course. So that's one you can have a look at as well, at thebeekeeper.org. And we did that by collaborating with experts from all over the world, and it's designed to take you from square one right through to even a deep scientific knowledge in beekeeping. So the whole idea is you can jump online and get this very well done video content with myself, my father, and experts from all over the world, teaching you not only how to keep bees here in this location, but also in dry, and also in and we're really excited that that has taken off, and with the funds from that we've now got enough to plant 1 million trees this year, and that's what we're calling our Billions of Blossoms program, which is where we literally partner with organisations all around the world, Australia, USA, the rest of the world, and create billions of safe blossoms for pollinators to forage on. And if there's one to keep our species, to keep our balance, it's more habitat, it's more trees, it's more flowers for our bees. So we're pretty excited to have that all come to fruition, and thank you to all of those that have supported that project as well at thebeekeeper.org. Any more questions?
We have some questions coming in about the birthday special offer. Can you explain a bit about what it is?
Okay, so the birthday special offer, what we'll do is we'll put some links straight in below so that I don't get it wrong.
Flow Hive 2 Plus bundle.
It's basically this hive,
Yeah,
but it's the first time we've bundled it. Danica from
Customer Sam's going to jump in here.
Yeah, do that.
So for the first time ever, we're going to put the Flow Hive 2 Plus, which is our premium hive, you've just had the rundown for, in a bundle, including 10% not just off the accessories and smoke like we normally do in the bundle deal, but also 10% off Flow Hive 2 Plus. So that's pretty exciting.
Ah, very nice.
So smoker and
We're very busy keeping up with orders on this one actually. So our focus has been really getting our production up and being able to get hives to all of you people out there who have been getting started, and for those that are increasing the size of their apiary as well. And so, you know, of course there'll be new innovation, and let us know what you'd like to see in our next hive as well, but it's not coming anytime soon.
I'm going to introduce 2 new queens today. I haven't removed the existing queens. I'm in southeast Queensland. The weather is rainy. What do you recommend?
Okay, rainy's a bit of a hard time to do the requeening procedure. For those that don't know, what you have to do to requeen a hive is you take off the top box, you're in your bee suit, you got your smoker, you got your gloves on, and it's a process of finding the queen. And we've got some great videos to help you do that at thebeekeeper.org. But it's a bit of a practice, so get some help if you're not used to spotting the queen. It's not something that you can suddenly pick up overnight, but once you've got your eye in, you can pretty reliably find her in amongst the 50,000 bees or so in your hive. And the idea is you take her away and you wait for, say, half a day or a day to let the hive realize that it doesn't have a queen. And you go back and you put in the new queen that comes in a little cage, block of candy at the end, 5 or so escort bees to feed her in the male. You put her in there, the bees then chew away at the candy, and she's released into the hive, and by that time the bees have gotten used to her pheromones and they're much less likely to kill her. So that's the process of requeening. Your question was, what do we, I haven't taken out the old queen yet, so what do I do? It's raining. And the answer would be, if you can, I'm not sure how long your queens have been in the little cage, is keep them well watered just by rubbing a little bit of water on the outside of the cage. You don't pour it in there, but just wet your finger and just put a drop there. And the escort bees that are with her will drink that water and keep feeding her, and they've got the candy. And don't let them get too cold. And they can stay for many days like that. However, on your next available opportunity, get in there and go through the process that we just talked about. My sister Mira, she's been breeding queens, and she's been great because there's been a demand for them locally, and so she's had a lot to do with putting queens in little boxes and sending them off.
We have a question about the flow frames. Do they have a lifespan and a pest or disease build up on them?
Okay, so we have built them to last as long as we can. We're still early days, or early days as in 7 years in now. We've still got frames that are functioning beautifully 7 years later. If you do have any problems with your flow frames, do get in contact with us, because the whole idea is that we're trying to make a product last for a very long time, and if you have any trouble, get in contact and we'll try and troubleshoot with you and look after you. Now, one thing we've worked out recently, because after 7 years you get a bit of build up on the frames, is you can clean them. Now, it's been a bit of a journey working out that, because propolis and wax is so sticky, like even if you use solvents and things, it doesn't want to come off the flow frame parts. You know, it gets a bit here, gets all grimy, and you can't see into the beautiful matrix and watch the bees deposit their nectar anymore. So one thing we've been experimenting with success is a hot water pressure washer. Now you take the frames out And yeah, obviously shake all the bees off, and at this stage you assume that there's no honey in them, you've harvested the honey. Now, hot water, you need to be above the wax melt temperature of 63 degrees Celsius. So 70 degrees is good. You can get that out of a hot water system that doesn't have it truncated to 50 degrees like many of them do these days. Or you can simply a tub of water or a drum of water that is at 70 degrees, whether you're topping it up with kettles or whatever you want to do, or an urn, and put the intake to your pressure washer into that, and that way you're blasting with nice hot water. Look after yourself, don't burn yourself, and the whole idea is if you set the frame to open position so that water can flow easily, and you're just blasting down the cell lines, that'll help clean it up. Not something you need to do every year by any means, but it's something you want to revive an old set of frames that's not looking so flash anymore, and get a whole lot of the wax build up off, as you say. So thank you for all your great questions. We've got time for a couple more.
Melody is asking, where are you?
So we're here on the very easterly point of Australia, and it's a bit of a rainy day here. You can see the flowers down there are almost taking over our hives at the moment, of getting so much rain at the moment that it's really everything's growing very well. Normally you can see the ocean out there beyond the rolling hills. It's a good place to keep bees because there's usually something for them all year round, and we get quite good honey harvesting even in the winter. Not to say that it's a bad thing if you have long, cold, snowy winters. In those places it can get very exciting with everything flowering at once and a huge amount of nectar available. And you hear in Canada people saying a whole box filled up in a day. Hard to believe. We never see that here. About a week is the fastest it goes here, but I'd love to see a day. So share your stories if you've got stories about how quickly the bees will fill up. Now, it's not raining quite so much anymore. We can probably go out to the hive and have a little look. And thank you so much for the question. Could you just lift up that internet modem so we can get a bit more signal out by the hives here? You can see here there's not a whole lot going on. We've harvested a lot of these frames recently. There's one here that's still got some honey in it, but they've started to chew it away as they put the distribute the honey a little bit and consume it to feed to the babies below. Thank you very much for tuning in and helping us celebrate what's been the most incredible 7 years. A huge thank you to our team of busy bees that have been making everything happen, getting the hives out to you all. And thank you so much for all of you that have been in support all around the world from the very beginning, even from sharing the story to becoming beekeepers. And the best of luck with the new beekeeping season. Thank you.
Cake now?
We can eat cake, yes.